Pharmaphobic is powered by Achieve the Lifestyle, a company dedicated to helping you empower your health, redefine your lifestyle, and all for the health of it. You're listening to Pharmaphobic, where we challenge the state of health in America. I'm Janie, a physician assistant, and I've seen how healthcare keeps people dependent instead of truly healthy.
And I'm Dan, a veteran turned fitness pro here to uncover the truth and explore simple and sustainable health solutions. From big pharma to big food, we're exposing the conflicts of interest keeping us sick and finding better ways to take back our health.
No fluff, no gimmicks, just real talk, real solutions, and a little bit of fun along the way. Hi, welcome back to the Pharmaphobic podcast. I'm Janie.
And I'm Dan.
And today we're going to talk about food quality. So we recently were traveling. We went back to my home in Kansas. And man, the food at the airport is not great.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point where I just assume that if we're traveling, we're about to bet against our long-term health with what we're going to be eating, at least en route to wherever it is we're going, especially if we're traveling nationally. If we're going international, there might be some hope. Right. But yeah.
And, I'm a fan of, I'll bring, ground beef or fruits and vegetables, but, Dan's a little bit of a diva. Food has to be hot. He doesn't like raw veggies. I like hot food. What can I say? I will not eat it if I can't reheat it. Boom. That's bars. That's bars right there. Woo! That's bars. So anyway. Yeah.
The whole thing was, this is where it became an adventure, because every time we travel, we have to navigate the airport to find like a little snack. You're going to get hungry. You didn't eat since you left home. And this time we traveled at night. So we literally went straight from work to the airport and flew out. So it's like, what are we going to eat for dinner? Or what are we going to eat? Whatever. So we get, what was that? St. Louis airport on our way. We flew Florida to St. Louis and then St. Louis to Kansas. And I was like, okay, wait here. I'm going to go look for a snack, as the kids would say. And
you came back with a whole bag.
I came back with a whole bag. But $53 later, because everybody knows that buying anything at the airport is going to be like $25 more expensive than what it costs outside. So if it's $1 burger, you're eating fast food, it's $1 burger outside, it's $1 menu at the airport, it's a $25 menu, okay? I'm exaggerating, but you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I was scouring through the little snack shop at the airport, and it took me a while. It probably took me like a good 20-something minutes to come up with some dried fruit and some pork rinds and a little coconut thing. It was hard, and it was expensive. Yeah. And I came back with a whole bag, but it really isn't that much food. It's not like you're going to eat a satisfying meal for the price of what you would sit down and have a burger and like an actual dinner somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, this brings us to the topic of the episode. We're calling this food quality versus the world, okay? Because everybody seems to be arguing against food quality. And then there's like this island here of people where we're at, and some people like us are at, where we're like, nah, guys, you got to look at the food quality. And everybody else is arguing about, it's your macros. It's your freaking calories in, calories out, whatever. But we're saying, and we're putting the line in the sand, that food quality is probably the first thing that needs to get addressed when revisiting or visiting or trying to improve your health for the long term. We're not talking about, I just want to drop 20 pounds here for this wedding. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about how do I make it to 80 in the healthiest, best shape that I could ever be, so that when I'm there, I'm still kicking butt.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about it is if you improve your food quality, you will improve your health, and then usually the weight follows suit.
Yeah. So to kind of expand here a little bit, like our process, the way we address it with people that we work with, food quality is going to be the first thing, making better choices. And if people really adhere to that process, you're going to start seeing some results, performance, the way you feel, mood, and the weight's going to start coming off. The body's going to start to change. Inflammation's going to go down, et cetera, et cetera. Then from there, then we can start talking about macros and the calories in, calories out, and all this other BS that people are putting first. They're putting the cart before the horse type of thing.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And the other thing is that a lot of people they may have good intentions on eating better quality of food, but there's just so much information out there. You know, there's very prominent people out there saying that certain preservatives or seed oils, which, hang on, we will get to in future episodes in depth, they don't matter. They don't impact it.
Yeah.
But I strongly disagree with that, especially when it comes to processed foods. Now, and there's even some people out there who are like, processed foods aren't bad. Our ancestors, you know, tried to process foods. They'd be so happy. I'm pretty sure they would not be happy with stuff that lasts 5 years. I'm just saying. I'm pretty sure.
Well, and they're talking like when that's such a freaking, and it pisses me off because it's like Dr. So-and-so, dietitian this, you know, they're throwing all their titles at you to follow suit, you know, this is my title, these are my credentials, and this big thing on their credentials. And then they put out a bunch of crap on like, oh, our ancestors processed food too. You mean they preserved it in salt? They dried and made beef jerky with salt to last a season? Is that what you're talking about? Or they fermented some vegetables to last for the season? Is that what you're talking about? Like they made sauerkraut? They're not talking about making Oreos.
Right.
Or making freaking dough out of 300 ingredients.
Right.
So that argument is very, very annoying, to say the least.
And then the other thing is, you know, people try, like going to what you mentioned about putting the cart before the horse, is people try to become healthier and they jump to the macros. Okay. And, you know, we're huge proponents of increasing your protein. We think everyone would benefit from it who's not already doing it. Barring any pre-existing health issues. But a lot of people, to increase their protein, they'll go to things like Quest chips or protein bars in place of meals, or protein shakes like the Premier protein shakes, Muscle Milk, in place of a meal. And now I'm not knocking on protein shakes. We utilize them, okay? We utilize protein bars, especially during traveling, but they are to supplement food intake, not to replace.
Not only that, listen, when we're talking about food quality, this is why this is the Pharmaphobic podcast, and we got to question stuff. Like if you're following us and you know that we're all about questioning stuff and discernment and creating why I need to do a little bit better job about doing my homework on stuff. If I say I'm going to eat a protein bar, it's not going to be the first one you see in the grocery store. I'm probably turning the aisle over and looking at, you know, boom, 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 and reading ingredient labels till I find the one that makes sense.
Right.
Okay? Because there's a whole lot of mystery ingredients, even in the stuff that's in the health aisle.
Right. And that goes to, you know, processed foods. Now, we personally try to eliminate processed foods, but in all technicality, we do intake processed food.
Yeah. So,
right? But we are very particular about how that food is processed. And as Dan mentioned, the mystery ingredients, what's added, because things like Quest chips, things like other protein bars, or even if we're moving away from the protein and you're eating a lot of prepackaged foods like chips, cookies, candies, cereal.
Protein cookies, protein cereal, huh?
Right. But just like not even protein stuff, just in general, what I'm trying to get to is that these hyper processed foods, or ultra processed foods, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself, are hyper palatable. Okay, so they are engineered by food chemists, if that's the right word, or food scientists, to have the perfect combination of salt, sugar, fat, to where you eat it and it lights up your brain. And so, you know, what was that marketing? Was it for Pringles or Lay's? Like, but you can't eat just one.
Yeah, it's Pringles.
They engineered it so you couldn't. Okay, so you want more and you're not satisfied. The other thing is that they're flavored to mimic something healthy, like a strawberry Pop-Tart. Strawberries are great. Strawberry Pop-Tart, not great. Okay. Now your body recognizes the flavor of strawberry and it's waiting for these nutrients that it's never going to get. So when that doesn't get it, okay, well, we need more because we didn't get it. And now you're over consuming. Okay. But if we move away from processed foods, not completely, but majority of the time, and go to more whole food sources, you're getting more nutrients, you're feeling more satisfied, and you're going to be more fulfilled throughout the day. And you may be able to eat more in some cases, volume-wise, receive less of a caloric load, and feel more satisfied. How is that not a win-win-win?
I think also there's the mechanism to point out to this before I kind of lay out the camps here. That hunger is your body seeking nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're putting food in your body that lacks nutrients and you're just to feel full, you're actually not killing the sensation of hunger. Does that make sense?
Right.
It's like a temporary relief from hunger. But when you give your body the nutrients and your body's like, oh, I got the vitamin A that I needed and the vitamin C, boom, boom, boom,
Mm-hmm.
and the magnesium and the whatever, your body's like, okay, I feel really good.
Yeah.
The satiety comes in quicker.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because we evolved to seek out high-fat foods, right? Because those would sustain us,
Mhm.
right? But it wasn't a glazed donut, okay? It was like whale blubber, okay?
Yeah, that's an example. Yeah, or like, a ribeye that you got out of your but
Sorry, I went back to my Viking people.
no, so when we talk about food quality, like just to go back a little bit and lay it out for you, there are different camps when we talk about nutrition. You got the food quality people, hello, right here. You got the people that talk about the macros, that they're all about the macros.
If it fits your macros.
If it fits your macros camp, where it's like you're not losing weight because you don't have this perfect macronutrient ratio where your proteins are this and your carbs are this and your fats are that, which
Zone dieting.
Exactly. It's like you're not eating it in the right, so you could eat all the garbage you want, but it's got to be perfectly balanced in your macronutrients.
Yeah.
So that's why you're not losing weight. You're eating pizza in the wrong balance of macronutrients.
You had 2 slices instead of a slice and 3/4.
Exactly. That's that camp. And listen, I'm not saying that balancing your macros is not part of the long-term equation. I'm just saying that if you're starting there, you're going to mess up, especially if you're measuring and weighing BS. And then there's the calories in, calories camp, calories in, calories out, which kind of matches if it fits your macros a little bit, because they're like, oh, just work out, baby. Just go on a walk after you drink your diet soda. It's gonna cancel it out.
Oh, and a lot of them are basing that, if you eat at a caloric deficit, it doesn't matter what you eat, you're at a deficit. Okay. But a lot of those people are basing like a smartwatch or their phone saying, I expended X amount of calories. And maybe you know this better than I do, but I remember reading that it is not, your watch doesn't accurately measure how many calories you burn.
It's an overestimation.
Yeah. Or your elliptical that you're on.
Yeah.
That's not accurate.
It's an overestimation. The only way, like, we'd have to hook you up to a freaking one of those VO2 max machines type things to really get what you're burning. So it's an estimation. Your watch is telling you that you're incurring in more activity than you actually are.
And not to mention it fosters a unhealthy behavior with food, because now your eating is a transaction. Like, I cannot eat unless I do this, which long term, that's not healthy mentally revolving around food, because you don't have to earn nourishing your body in a sense, right?
Mm.
Because you do burn, if you're metabolically fit, you will burn calories just laying around all day, okay? And your body deserves nutrients, whether it's going for a walk around the block or you're out for a hike. We can argue like how much and everything, but you still deserve to nourish your body. You don't have to kill yourself in the gym to do so.
Yes. And nourishing your body is an everyday thing. You don't have to base it around like, oh, I'm going to eat really well because I'm going to be active today. And then tomorrow I'm going to sit on my butt. So I'm just going to eat garbage, as the French would call it. Yes, I speak French.
No, you don't.
Anyway, it's a daily thing to get these nutrients in, whether you're being active or not. Hopefully we are being very active, but you get the point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, crossing over into why we are such ardent.
But do you speak English?
Oh, I'm having a day here. Why we're why Why we're such staunch supporters. You see, such and staunch.
There you go.
Too many going around. Why we're such staunch supporters of food quality first. Really, if you do the exercise, and if you're not doing this yet, I want you to go to the grocery store and, start grabbing stuff that you would normally eat. I mean, cereals are a good place to start. Bread is another one. And I'm not saying don't eat bread, because listen where I'm going, because sourdough with the 3 ingredients is not the same thing as a lot of the breads.
Wonder bread.
You remember when we were in Vegas? So we went to Vegas last year for a jiu-jitsu competition. And, my parents came.
You masters worlds. Don't be shy.
Oh my
You competed.
God, whatever. But we brought, my parents came, my sister came. So it was like a big family event. And, we're staying at an Airbnb, and I wanted to control what I was eating, because I was going to compete. And so we could cook and all that stuff. And that's usually how we travel, honestly. We need a kitchen, and we want all the kitchen utensils and stuff. Which, shout out to the guy in Phoenix, by the way, because he had no plastic, ceramic pans. His kitchen was very good. I'm like, this dude is in our camp.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know it.
No air fresheners.
No air fresheners. No, free event. It was really good. Anyway. So we go, I tell my parents, hey, let's make some burgers, at home burgers. Yeah, because you could eat a burger at home and cut out all the BS. It's very possible. But we went to the grocery store to get bread, and the whole aisle. I went up and down the whole aisle, literally the whole bread aisle. It's huge. Turning things over, looking at the ingredients to find a bread that was halfway decent. Then I went to the bakery section looking for a bread that was halfway decent. And they'll sell you stuff that's like, oh, this is sourdough. Yeah, okay, you already messed it up because you put the mystery ingredients in it. So going back to the exercise, start reading ingredient labels. I always challenge people. I'll bet you that a lot of the stuff that people commonly eat, if I asked you, what's this? You're not going to know. You're not going to know. You need 2 chemistry degrees, 1 biology doctorate, and maybe another chemistry degree to figure out what half the stuff in some of this food is.
Yeah.
Am I right, or am I right?
You're right. Yeah.
Anyway.
And if people are like, oh, it doesn't matter, then if you yourself have never traveled to a different country, but so many people can testify to this, whether or not they have celiacs or they have digestive issues, they go to Italy or somewhere in Europe and they can eat all the pasta and bread and they don't get bloated. They don't feel indigestion, and they end up losing weight. I mean, people are generally more active on vacation anyway, but it's a testament to how we sort of bastardize food here in the U.S. through various different ways. There's a lot of things we add to it, whether it's to make it hyper palatable or to make it last longer on the shelf or to enrich it as a selling point.
Yep.
But then we can go further into the farming of, the wheat and the grain that we use in the bread. What are they spraying on it? How's the quality of the soil? I mean, there's a lot of things to consider before it reaches the shelf. And so that's why we always just try to look at the simpler ingredients. Like Dan mentioned, the sourdough with 3 ingredients. Now, can I verify the quality of the grain in that? No. But because it hasn't had the added things to it, I'm that much safer with it. And so that's really what I try to express to people is we're never going to be perfect, right? The cards are against us in that regard here in the US. But if we can lessen our exposure to certain things, lessen the load of harmful things that go against our goals, that's where we need to be.
I think I'm batting 1,000 with people, clients, friends that travel abroad that have some sort of digestive issue here. And then they travel abroad, eat the same thing that they eat here, the same version, and they eat it over there and they can handle it. They feel great.
Yeah.
And then they come back and boom, the stomach issue returns. Funny one is one of my clients, Russian, and he's always asking me. with the Russian accent which makes it so funny when he's talking to me.
Yeah,
He's
do
older.
that, yeah.
He's 70. No, I'm going to spare the people the Russian accent, but it's hilarious because it's a heavy Russian accent and he's 70. He's old school and he's Russian. So you imagine how serious this man is and like the dry humor that Russian people bring where it's like you think he's serious, but he's actually joking. But anyway, he's always like, I go over there. I'm traveling in Europe, eating the food. I'm drinking the wine. I'm fine. I come here. As soon as I start eating food here, same thing. I put on 5 to 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's inflammation, bro.
Yeah.
Like, and I knew this, but it really hit me when we went to Dubai and when we went to Portugal. That's where I was like, yeah, we're definitely messing up. And if you don't believe what we're saying, you're like, y'all are crazy. Hello, it's a topic of conversation out in mainstream media right now with the whole MAHA movement, the whole Make America Healthy Again movement. And this, believe whatever you want, we need it. Like, we need it. Now, they're talking about, Fruit Loops in Canada and the UK versus Fruit Loops here. Why the hell is it different? Why is it different? Yeah. Why, like, if it, and anybody out there, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're producing the same product, 2 different versions of it, isn't that more expensive than producing one version of the same thing and selling that to everybody?
And why
in the freaking world are we making American Fruit Loops and it's got all the BS in it, and then Canadian Fruit Loops have like half the ingredients? What are we doing,
and it's kind of backwards though, because in the U.S. we're making, well, just stay on the Fruit Loop. We're making Fruit Loops. The poorer health version is for the U.S. The healthier version is for another country. But then if you look at other countries, like, is it Denmark that makes Ozempic?
Yeah.
They ship it to the U.S. and nobody in Denmark uses it.
Exactly. Oh.
You see what
y'all.
So why are we, so Denmark is taking care of their people to us, where we're shitting on ourselves.
And they're potentially going to make $1 trillion off of us.
Yeah.
And hanging out in Denmark, baby, with their clogs,
so
lovely, chilling, drinking raw milk, eating their raw cheese, chilling.
So could it be that the U.S. is doing a worse version to ourselves because that could generate revenue in other capacities by making us unhealthier and then dependent on medications or doctor visits or tests and other things like that?
So what you're saying is that there's a system to make people sick in some regard so that further down the system, they can make money off of people's illness, and then they can make them feel better so they can send them back to eat the same BS that made them sick in the first place so that they can come back around and make more money. Is that what you're saying? Did I get that right?
I believe so.
And that if you look at the board members in some of these big pharmaceutical companies and some of these big food companies, they're the same people?
Interesting.
Oh, my God. Nah, but I'm crazy. Whatever. Just, hey. Yeah. Just a little tinfoil hat moment there. But really, here's the thing. Let's lay it down, brass tacks. Fruit Loops, using that example, different ketchup is a big one. Different ingredients here, different ingredients over there. Same freaking company makes them. Now you're like, oh, well, it doesn't matter because we're, calories and macros if people just ate it in the right macros. Okay. Why do we have more heart disease and more mystery cancers popping up in younger and younger people, and they don't have the same numbers per capita? Because obviously our population's bigger than all those countries, but they don't have the same freaking numbers we do. Right. Why are there people not as sick as ours? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like if you go to the UK, you go to Canada, why are their obesity rates lower than ours? And Lord knows that, people in the UK are not like this pillar of fitness in the community type of thing. They're not Norwegian, like that's where somewhere like Norway or Sweden, they have a better thing there. But, so why are they less sick? They're still sick. They're still and getting sicker, but it's way less than us. So I'm going to go ahead and say that definitely one of the causes here is what's in the food.
And I think another thing to look at, and we can get into this deeper in future episodes, but just to drive the point is that you see other countries, when they start to adopt U.S. foods,
Ooh, yes,
their illness rates go up. So Mexico,
Yes,
right?
Mexico.
And was it China that recently?
China, diabetic rates are going through the roof, and they've been getting more into westernized foods. Yep.
Yes.
And then India is another one that their diabetic rates are going through the roof, and Spain is getting their heart disease numbers are growing and growing and growing. Yes. So they're doing things like, they were cooking with traditional oils like olive oil and beef lard and all this stuff. And then they switched over to the mystery oils, seed oils, which we'll get into later. But they switched over to that stuff. Mexico did this.
Right.
And their obesity rates went through the roof.
Right.
So yes, you're right. They start adopting more industrialized, convenient stuff. And it's no mystery. Their disease rates, obesity rates start going skyrocketing.
Yeah, and you can see it in the Native American populations. When they were sequestered to their reservations and then they're given subsidized food, the health is poor, right? And it's not only because lack of access and things like that. There's a bunch of things that influence that, but I would say that the food is a huge component of that. And then going to in a future episode, we also want to hit on convenience, because you will find a trend that the more convenient something is, you are going to be sacrificing something, and more often than not, it's a component of your health. To what degree depends, and then you have to, kind of balance it out. Is the convenience worth the health loss? I can't think of words, but for a quick example, like electricity, lights, yay. I would say that the benefits of that are great, but then we're also messing up our circadian rhythm a little bit, but there's ways around it. But that's a whole future episode that I'm really excited to get into. But we've just been speaking more and more about convenience in the last few minutes. And so I just wanted to note that.
Yeah. That kind of bridges over into the farming aspect of it, and the subsidies and what we're commoditizing and all this other stuff. So people start touting, well, we can't really get into these whole food diets in mass because of the farming and blah, 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 and all these aspects, like these complex things. And I just got to say that it goes into this process of what are we subsidizing and what are we commoditizing. Now, when you subsidize things, meaning the government is spending money on promoting, on making sure that they have what they need so that these companies and these processes can grow at a higher rate and reach more people. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, this is beneficial to everybody, quote unquote. And how that happens, we can talk about lobbyists and little backdoor deals, whatever, and corruption, but this is beneficial to everybody. We're going to subsidize it, put money behind it so that it grows and reaches more people. And then commodities are things that are widely available, supply in the supply chain or whatever, and then it drops the price of it. So it's widely available, and therefore it is cheaper. That's commodities in a nutshell, layman's terms. Somebody will be like, that's not what commodities are. But this is the layman's terms of it. So when you commoditize something, subsidies will do it. They'll turn stuff into a commodity. It becomes widely available. So therefore it is easily accessible and convenient, which is what Janie was talking about. And this is where does making something super convenient usually comes back around, and it's detrimental to us. And in talking about farming, there are crops that are subsidized by the government. Corn is one of them. Soy is one of them. I believe beef gets some subsidies, but it's not the beef that we want to eat. It's the large cattle operations where the cows don't touch a speck of grass. They're in, these little freaking pens, and they're being fed soy and corn, So now you see what's happening, and it gives you the poorest quality of meat that you can have. Obviously, our hope is that, if we invested differently and promoted things a little bit differently, we could get grass-fed beef and free-roaming cows everywhere because we have the land for it, and figure out a way to make that choice more widely accessible to people. So it's a matter of what we're going to commoditize, what we're going to put money behind. And it's one of those things where, it starts expensive. So let's say right now you want to buy a grass-fed ribeye. 100% grass-fed, grass-finished, it's really expensive. But if we figured out a way to make that stuff more widely available because we're putting intention, attention, and dollars behind it because we know that it's really good for people, it's the best way, then people get, the industry gets more, it figures out a way, it's incentivized to innovate. And we start getting that, making it more common,
Right.
and the prices drop.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? That's how that works. That's the process of commoditization. And what we've commoditized, what we've turned into a commodity is the worst version of the product.
Yep.
So this is where you start talking about regenerative farming. It's the new term, the new buzzword.
Probably in the last couple of years, those have kind of hit a stride. And if you haven't looked into regenerative farming, I would strongly encourage you to do so. Wild oak pastures is one I know right off the top of my head.
White oak in Georgia. Yep.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of veterans. Like these veterans are opening ranches in Colorado and in Georgia and in really Tennessee, really cool places. And it started in beef companies, and it's regeneratively farmed. And you look at a regenerative farm and you look at an industrial farm, and I promise you, like I remember hearing about this because there's a place called, shout out to the Savory Institute, because these people teach farmers how to turn their farm from industrial into regenerative, and they've been doing it for a while. And the results are amazing. Like the ecosystem around these farms that go regenerative just comes back to life.
Right.
Like hawks and bald eagles start popping up and all this stuff, which is, believe it's White Oak Pastures, the story that they have, that when they turned regenerative, bald eagles started coming back to the farm, but then they were eating their chickens. So it's like, it's a good problem, but it's a problem.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But that's something that whenever I work with somebody who's vegan or vegetarian, and, I'm not here to change somebody's mind, but I do believe in promoting awareness so people can make the best decision for them. And a lot of people are like, but the animals are mistreated. And I don't disagree. So in the industrial farming, as Dan was speaking about, they are mistreated. But I encourage them to look at regenerative farms and people who practice ethical hunting, which do not discuss that with somebody who's in their 80s, because that did not go over well. Because I'm like, oh, they usually get like the older animals that aren't contributing. And she's like, you do know how old I am, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm foot in mouth. Great. But anyway, because if your stance of vegan or vegetarianism, you're rubbing off on me, is to promote health of animals, then regenerative farming is one of the best ways to do it, from which Dan noted. You create this whole ecosystem of other animals that thrive because you're farming in a way, and these animals that you are using for food, eventually it's done in a sustainable way so that we're not decimating a whole population, which then would affect all the other things.
No, and these people are like, they're moving the cows in the lands that they graze. They create this system where they graze here for a little bit, graze there for a little bit. So they're getting the freshest grass. It means they're eating more nutrients, and that's going to the quality of the beef. They're out in the sun. Hello, you're meant to be outside. Everybody is. Every single living organism except maybe the fishes that are down in 1,000 feet deep are meant to be
Those are
out
scary.
in the sun. Yeah, they're scary looking bastards. So, but they're meant out to be, we're meant out to be in the sun. And the cows, the dogs are the same way. Like when we take out Rolo on a walk, and then he just decides to lay out in the sun and doesn't want to go on a walk. He's telling us something. He's like, no, I need this vitamin D, son.
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing is, the sniff, the smell test, the eye test, the ocular pat down, if you will. Look at a cow in a regenerative farm and look at a cow in one of these highly industrialized farms. They look completely different. They look completely different. Chickens that are fully free range versus chickens that grow up in coops. They look completely different. Like the first time I saw a free range chicken, this is years ago, I was like, yo, that's a chicken? Like, seriously.
What do you think it was?
I thought it was some other weird bird because it wasn't as fat. It just looked different. That chicken had swag. It was swagged out. It was out in the sun. It's like, look at me. I'm just in all my glory type of chicken. you know?
I mean, I guess I did grow up in Kansas. You
Yeah.
didn't, so.
Yeah, exactly. You've seen all sorts of free range chickens. I grew up in the city in San Juan in Puerto Rico. I didn't see a chicken. Nah, but we went to farms. But the chickens weren't free range. They were like coop chickens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they look like a regular chicken. But
and also with the way that they cycle the animals, it helps the quality of the soil.
yes, because the animals graze on fresh grass, then they'll poop there, they eat it up, move to another pasture.
They eat the grass, not the poop.
Yeah, not the poop. But they'll poop there, and that poop will freaking regenerate that grass. So when they come back around, it's high quality grass again. You know what I mean? I mean, it's really fascinating, the whole process of regenerative farming. Now, here's the thing. We're using this new buzzword, regenerative. You know what regenerative farming actually is? Do you know what it is?
Just farming.
Just farming. The way Grandpappy used to do it, you know, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
And the other thing I like about regenerative farms is that they utilize the animal nose to tail. So if you look at these regenerative farms, yes, they'll sell meat. They also sell leather goods. They sell tallow, bone broth. Like they utilize everything from the animal. And to me,
they're making beauty products too, like really clean lotions and soaps and deodorants. I mean, it's worth a look.
Yeah. And it's, to me, that's better use, less waste. And then it goes back to, we can utilize things that are more natural and good for us, things that we've always been consuming, whether it's food or products on our skin, as opposed to these chemically engineered things. And so...
And really, to that point, you know, if you really think about like Native Americans back in the day when they would kill a bison, and you think they just pull out the ribeye and let the whole carcass there?
Let's eat that liver.
They ate the organs. Then they made coats and like, you know, winter apparel from the hides of it and the furs and all this stuff. And then they ate all the meat. And then they built, you know, tools with the rest of the stuff. I mean, the whole thing got used. Yeah. You know, and we've really gone away from that. So we also create a lot of garbage with the industrial farming. Exactly. But a lot of that garbage then is, you know, ground up and put into something with a whole bunch of mystery ingredients. And you might call it, I don't know, a hot dog.
Or Beyond Burger.
Oh, not Beyond Burger. We wish
that
they wish, because I'll never put that in my mouth, that it had some of that discarded animal product. It might
you're right.
It might be a better product at that point. Yeah. And here, going on to the Beyond thing, here's insanity at its best, where I'm just like, I either want to put my head through a wall right now, or I want to scream into a pillow. Let's get rid of the farms and replace it with a big old factory. Boom. That's going to make fake meat. What sense?
Is your name Bill Gates?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Billy, we see you. We know what you're doing, buddy. We know what you're doing, okay? Huh? Look, I see you. I know what you're doing.
Yeah, and so he has been, and again, recently he's just buying up land in the U.S.
Oh, he's buying a lot of farmland. Yeah. But the thing is that there are people all over Europe, you know, and they're usually, I hate to say it, guys, but they're usually, you know, the PETA, the veganism type people that have been convinced, have been programmed to believe that a factory that produces mystery ingredient laden foods is going to be better for humanity and the world than cows and chickens that roam out in the sun and eat grass and poop and grow grass because they pooped. Like, what are we talking about?
But cow farts cause...
Ooh, you're going to get me hot, because now we're talking about, you know, you could talk about what the UK is doing, that they're putting additives into the cow feed to stop them from farting.
Yeah, because they say that the methane gas then harms our ozone layer.
I can't even get into what.
But don't mind that the people who establish this and have meetings to talk about it all individually took private jets to have a meeting to talk about this. But that's not impacting
200,
the environment
they filled up the airspace with their private jets to talk about this.
But a cow fart, sure.
But a cow fart. So they're literally, this is in the UK, this is called Bovaer. It's an additive that they're putting into the cow feed to stop the cows from farting. What do you think that's going to do to that cow? Like, the arrogance that we can really outsmart nature is what blows my mind.
Oh, yes.
Like, it's just man, you guys, the further we stray, like, yes, we can inject innovation into stuff and, make it more convenient, make it more accessible to people, whatever. But there's a part there where we're really playing around with nature,
Right.
and it's not going to be good.
Nope.
And it's showing. It's showing. Look at these disease rates year over year. It's just going up. We never go down. We never stay the same. We just go up in disease and
Right.
sickness. I'm like, man, I wonder why people are having so many gastric issues. Hey, the food quality might have something to do with it. No, it's not that. You see? So this is why we need to talk about this. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, talking about the food quality. I think we missed something because there are people that say, hey, I work out. I could do whatever the hell I want, because I earn those calories, blah, blah, blah. Recent study that we saw the other day, and then this kind of combines two studies. And listen, let me give my disclaimer here. When we talk about scientific studies, we always, even the ones that we like, we put a little asterisk next to them, okay? Grain of salt, because you really got to comb through the methods. Some of these studies, you look at the methods and they're faulty. It's like, it's impossible to control all the things that could be factors in the outcomes of a study. So we read it, we take some information, we make some assumptions, but we also assume that, and I've participated in scientific studies as well for physiology and, performance and that sort of thing as a participant. So I can tell you, all the controls are not there.
Right.
So these conclusions are not going to be infallible and completely perfect. They can't do it. They'd have to sequester people or whatever, study subjects. Or some are done in animal models versus human models, and then they're extrapolating conclusions for humans. So even the ones we like, we put an asterisk next to them. And we comb through the methodology, and more important than combing through the methodology, and this is for you when you look up studies so that I want you pull up a study on the NIH website, wherever you're going, PubMed, wherever the hell. First thing I like to do before I read the abstract, okay, so what's this about and what kind of conclusion they came into? Then I'll scroll all the way down and look at funding. Who paid for this study? Because they have to disclose that. And then I'll come back and read the methodology and all this stuff. So that's important because a study, like many out there that are telling you that the most important thing for your health and fitness is calories in, calories out, and then it's funded by Coca-Cola. Do we really want to take that at this is God's news right here? Let me not question that at all.
Yeah.
Okay. So this study that that's my disclaimer. It was long as hell. Anyway, this study that we were reading about the muscle quality being affected by the consumption of ultra-processed foods. So meaning the more ultra-processed foods that people consumed, their muscle quality tended to go down because they had more intramuscular fat, okay? So when fat accumulates usually in three places, you have visceral, okay? Then you have the intramuscular fat. So think of like a marbled piece of meat, like you get a ribeye or whatever, like a Wagyu ribeye, they tend to be really fatty. So they're very marbled and there's a lot of fat, little deposits in between the meat. And then you have the fat that's right below the skin. That's
subcutaneous.
Subcutaneous fat.
And then what's visceral?
Visceral, it's like in between your organs and they're just squeezing. The more visceral fat you have, the worse off you are because it's just squeezing the life out of your organs eventually. Okay, so think about dudes with the beer bellies. That's a lot of visceral fat. The hard beer bellies, skinny arms, skinny legs, big old beer belly. That's a problem. So the consumption of ultra-processed foods was having an effect on the amount of intramuscular fat. Therefore, the muscles were not as efficient as they could have been, or they could be. Another thing they found is the influence or the effect that the consumption of ultra-processed foods has on osteoarthritic pain. Okay, they went with the knees on this one. Now, this correlates with another study that I posted about and kind of talked about a while back, which was the correlation between high blood glucose levels, meaning elevated blood sugars, and arthritic pain. Okay, so people that had higher blood glucose, higher blood sugar levels tended to have more symptoms of arthritic pain, tended to deal with arthritic pain more. Okay. Now, you want to say something before I carry on because I'm talking a lot.
No, keep going.
Okay. So the correlation there was very high. Hey, the more the blood glucose goes up, the more they report that they are experiencing arthritic pain.
Yeah, there are some studies out there that say, because when we diagnose somebody with arthritis, it's usually primary osteoarthritis or secondary. So secondary is going to be like, I most likely have arthritis in my knee because I've had an ACL tear, 2 surgeries. So an injury, an acute injury will then lead to secondary arthritis. Understandable. Primary arthritis is known as wear and tear, but there is some evidence coming out showing that high glucose levels, high amounts of sugar is causing a lot of inflammation and degradation of the joint spaces leading to arthritis, because you cannot tell me that somebody who really wasn't active their entire life, they were never in any sports, they didn't have any injury, but now they need a hip or knee replacement and it's wear and tear. Where'd the wear and tear come from?
So this is a good point, because we always, it's funny that, let's say we gathered 10 people with arthritis, and you think, conventional wisdom, if you're, would you think that these are 10 former athletes and that's why they're arthritic right now? I used to run marathons. My knees are arthritic. I used to play football. My knees are arthritic. I used to do whatever. I fell from here, boom, 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 had a surgery. Now that area is arthritic. That actually is way less common. What you see more is sedentary people experiencing arthritic pain. And when you start looking at people that are getting joints replaced, you think that they were former athletes and they just pounded their knees or their hips into dust. But what you get is a lot of sedentary people that end up needing hip replacements.
Yeah. And you could make the argument where if they're more sedentary, they're likely carrying more body weight. And then, yes, each pound is like 4 units of pressure on the knee, most notably, because it is a huge weight-bearing joint. And so, yes, that can cause some wear and tear. But the word that I kind of don't like in the medical field is idiopathic, meaning like we don't know the cause.
Oh,
and
that means I don't want to know the cause.
Well, so things like idiopathic arthritis, idiopathic hypertension, so high blood pressure, to me is like, that is a blood sugar issue, insulin resistance issue. Why are we not addressing that more? I will die on a hill that there is no such thing as essential hypertension or idiopathic hypertension. Something is causing it. We're just not doing the due diligence to find it or notify the patients like, hey, you have insulin resistance that we have the capability to notify you of 13 years in advance, but let's wait until your blood pressure's higher, your blood sugar's over 6.5, and then let's give you a med to address it instead of educating you years and years and years and years prior.
No, because if you don't go on the med, we don't make money. So why would we do that?
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Arthritis. I went to high blood pressure. Please continue.
No, yeah. So, it's funny because it's a lot of sedentary people that end up with dealing with the arthritis. When you lay them out, it's like the majority of them is like, hey, this person hasn't done anything in 30 years. Why are they in pain like this? Why are their joints degraded to such a point?
And then we're going to replace their joint.
And then we're going to replace
and
the
tell
joint.
them not to lift anything heavy. So please continue to be sedentary.
Exactly.
With
and
a
not only
replaced
that,
joint.
I mean, it's got to be scary. It's got to be scary to like have a joint replaced and then be like, can I rely on this? Like I'm sure the brain muscle connection is highly interrupted by that, highly disrupted by a joint replacement.
Yeah, I had a family member who had his hip replaced at, the age of 40. And luckily you were in close contact with him and got him into a strength training program post-op. And now he's back to playing a competitive, like recreational, but a competitive sport, which is great.
Here's one. These people are my heroes. Like I work with a lot of older people, 70s, even in their 80s. And to me, when I train older people, I'm like kind of visualizing myself. I'm like, this is what I want to be doing when I'm 80 years old. I want to be in the freaking gym, throwing some weights around, being a badass. Be like, listen, I am not going to go gentle. Like if death will take us all, but God damn it, I'm going to put up a fight. So anyway, this one of the lady we used to work with in New York, she has to be 83, 84 years old now. She might be 84 because she was 80 when we moved.
And then
we've been here
like
for 3 years.
She set like records in
She
powerlifting.
is going to powerlifting nationals this year.
Yeah.
She's like 84. What do we got here? 2 knees and 1 hip replaced. And she's freaking lifting weights and being a badass. Like, and with her, in her case, she used to ride horses competitively. So she's taken all the falls off of horses, busted herself up. And then she didn't really start working out till she was in her 70s. And now she's going to powerlifting nationals as an 80-some-year-old. She's got to be 84 years old. I would say she's 84 if I had to guess. Cause I mean, come on, bro. Like, you got to get back on that horse, huh? You see what I did there?
Oh my goodness.
You see what I did there? You see how I brought it back? You see how I brought it back? But yeah, it's
so basically the quality of your food does more than just, you know, it does important things, influences your blood sugar, your blood pressure, your overall health, can help you reach your goals of weight loss or improved health. But we're finding out the quality of your food is also affecting something as much as your muscle efficiency, your muscle quality, and things like that, which then can lead you to, are you performing optimally or non-optimally? And then, you know.
No, and it can just forget all the like frustration, because then you're like, man, I'm doing all this work and it's not showing.
Right.
You know, and then you quit, or then you don't put in, you're not as diligent as you should be about it. Or maybe you become way too diligent in the wrong way. You know, you start worrying about calories and like the macros and if it's fitting your macros properly and all this other stuff, instead of improving the food quality. So it could lead you in a different direction that's not going to give you the result you want. Like, just at base, that's what I would go. It's like all these people that you see that tell you that they're in the gym and they're working really hard and they're eating right and all this stuff, but you're like, I don't see it.
Yeah, and that is very frustrating, to be doing all that work and not seeing the results of the efforts that you're putting in. And so that's where I think I have, in the medical space, helped a lot of people. And what I would like to help with people with our lifestyle coaching is, you know, I hear you. I mean, I've been there before. I think you maybe have been there before. I think it's a little bit more prominent in women, where the efforts you're putting in aren't being shown. And then that gets very frustrating. So why are we doing this, you know? And it's like, yes, it is important to still do it because there are some unseen things with your health that are improving. But if you then look at the quality of not only your food, but also the quality of your workouts, quality of your sleep, quality of your stress management, all that can then facilitate you seeing the efforts you're putting in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's why we beat this horse.
Yeah.
Black and blue. Now, something that is, you know, looking at it, we want to obviously expand people's lives, but not only just make you live longer, but we want the quality of those added years to be really good. I mean, you know, you see these people that are 80 some years old and they've been active all their life, and they just live better lives. They perform at anything they do it at a higher level because they're healthier. They can think clear. They can move more. They just, you know, they're still traveling and things like that. Like, that's ultimately the goal, right? Yeah. And, you know, improving food quality is going to be a major block in that. Now, transitioning here a little bit, you know, speaking of food quality, how does that food quality look like for our children? You know, and this stems off a conversation that I had. Like, I work with people of all ages in the gym, and particularly now, a lot of teen athletes. And I'm seeing this, and I've been saying this for years. You've heard me say it. I saw it in New York. I'm seeing it here in Florida. Everywhere I go. Even the kids that are athletes, there's a lot of kids that are definitely overweight and kind of struggling with obesity. And activity is not necessarily the problem because they're playing a lot of sports.
Yeah, and anyone who has kids, you know, when I was growing up in school, I just played the sport at my school. Now there's the sport at your school, there's club teams, traveling teams, you have practice every single day.
So they're playing way more sports than we did.
Way more, yeah.
Way more sports than we did. Now, granted, you know, they have something that we didn't have, or that it started to come out when we were growing up, which is video games. Video games now compared to video games back, you know, they got the phones, they got the Netflix. You know, back then I had to get that VHS. I'm going to be 42 this year, y'all. So just, it's been a wonderful life. You know, starting to feel a little old, but it's all good because that's why we take care of our health. Anyway, they have certain things that are going to make them a little bit more sedentary when they're not playing, but they're definitely playing more sports than we did for
Yeah.
sure. So that comes into this point where maybe activity is not the problem here.
Right.
You
Well, for
know,
some kids.
for some kids.
Right. Because
But
some kids are not active.
yeah, and some kids play a sport, but then they're on their butt the rest of the
Right.
time, and then the activity will never balance out to what they're ingesting here. But food quality is definitely an issue with a lot of these kids. And then you hear a lot of parents that their kids are like underdeveloped, if you will. Oh, he's small. He's small, and the parents, significantly bigger, but oh, he's small. I'm like, you look at what the kid's eating, he's not getting in enough calories.
Right.
And he's definitely not eating good stuff.
So this is tricky because, there's a lot of people I'm 40, Dan's 42. There's a lot of people our age who have kids. And I would say a lot of the parents you work with are probably
Around our
30
age.
to 50.
Yeah, they could actually, their kids are, if preteens, they might be younger than me,
Right.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I remember some people say, well, I used to be able to eat anything and not gain a pound, right? And like growing up, when we were back home visiting my parents, I was like, used to hit up that Taco Bell, get a chicken quesadilla and Mountain Dew, like every week, right? We used to eat a lot of things, junk food, fast food or whatever growing up, and we still were super active. We didn't have the rate of health issues, specifically childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, things like that we're having now. That goes to food quality. Oreos, Pop-Tarts, cereal in the 80s and 90s
Completely
is not
different.
the same as it is now.
I ate that when I was a kid. It can't be that bad.
Yeah, it is more. There's more additives. And so that I have empathy with parents in that, because that's tough, because you grew up eating a certain way. Why can't your kids eat this way? Just we're not flipping over and looking at the labels and the ingredients. And that is challenging. And I understand parents, a lot of parents have a full plate. Now you have to do this. That sucks. But unfortunately, to promote the health of your child, it is something that needs to be done.
And listen, and also like buying them, buying Whole Foods and buying them good food can be, I mean, you got to strategize more to get more food and make it more economically viable in certain situations. But this goes back to the problem of commoditizing and incentivizing things, which that's at a higher social political level that that's why we're doing this.
Right.
We really want that push at the higher levels to come in, where we can shift the economy to where people have more access to grass-fed beef and, fruit and seasonal fruit, buying seasonal stuff,
Right.
things like that. But anyway, so that's part of the conversation. But, it's going to be a lot more work to feed your kid better. But is that worth it?
Yes.
In the long scheme of things, when we're talking about teenagers that are hitting diabetes?
Prediabetes, diabetes, obesity
Rates in children.
Elevated cholesterol,
Yeah.
elevated triglycerides.
And
I'm sorry. It is alarming to me, and I keep bringing this up, and I know because I'm in the medical field, I may be a little bit more aware of this and know the implications down the road that this can cause, so it scares me. But the rate of kids who have fatty liver disease is increasing and increasing. That's terrifying, okay? Fatty liver disease can be asymptomatic, you can have fatty deposits on the liver. It's not doing anything. But in some people, that fatty liver disease either is already or can then progress to where it's causing cellular damage of the liver and then leads to fibrosis, cirrhosis, liver transplant. And so that's terrifying. And a lot of people associate liver issues with alcohol, but now we're seeing an increase of it with not due to alcohol. It's due to food. Okay.
So elevated blood glucose levels.
Elevated blood glucose, elevated triglycerides, things like obesity. So which
now,
all these things can kind of, in a circle feed each other.
You don't have to be obese to experience fatty liver.
Oh,
right?
no, you don't.
Exactly.
You are an increased risk of fatty liver disease if you're obese, but you don't have to have it.
So kids could definitely start having fatty liver, but they don't have to be necessarily overweight, because the parent could just be like, well, he's skinny, he's good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times I find this in adults on incidental finding on imaging, meaning that I ordered an ultrasound. I was trying to look at the gallbladder. The gallbladder's right by the liver, so they're going to look at the liver as well. And it's fatty changes to the liver, but that's not what I was doing. So it's like, shit, now I have to talk about it, right? The problem is a lot of healthcare professionals won't talk about it. There's so many times where I'm meeting with a patient and, anytime I meet with a patient, I kind of go through their chart, have what's their blood work trending, what's the imaging that they've had. And just because, fatty liver is an issue, I always look if there's an ultrasound in there of the right upper quadrant, I'll look at it. And so many times I find that there is fatty liver, hepatic steatosis. It's not documented in their chart. The patient was never made aware, which you could say, fine, it may never lead to anything. Okay. But I always think, doesn't a patient have the right to be aware if things are abnormal? So before they cause an issue, they can start to make changes and a difference. Okay. Same thing with our kids, but we're not going to ultrasound everybody because a lot of times fatty liver doesn't cause any symptoms. But the rates of it are increasing, and that's terrifying because now if I catch it in an adult, okay, there's less time if it starts to present at 40 or 50 that it then can progress. Now you're having fatty changes to the liver at, 8, 9, 10, 11. They have their whole lives ahead of them. When they are 50 or 60, are they going to be awaiting a transplant list? What quality of life is that?
Yeah.
What are we setting our kids up for by letting them just, eat whatever and having no monitoring of their intake and just seeing what happens?
And you're basically, these kids are starting to experience diseases that were normally people would normally experience at 50. Like diabetes used to be an old people thing. Now it's becoming a very young people thing.
Yeah.
Like you're growing up overweight, then by college you're obese, and then after college you're diabetic. You're type 2 diabetic. That's crazy because what does a lifetime of diabetes, not just 30 years, but like now you're going to be a diabetic for 40, 50 years. What does that look like? Are we shortening lifespans here drastically where people that get sick at 18 won't make it to 50,
Right.
And keep in mind that 2 years ago, our life expectancy went down by 2 years. Okay, it was 78, we went down to 76. That's not good. Like, that's what we have to show as the most robust medical system in the world, as the most advanced medical system in the world. That's what we have to show for it. We have all this knowledge, all these freaking gyms in every corner, and that's what we have to show for it? That's crazy. That's ludicrous. That's preposterous, okay? But seriously, though, I think this topic stemmed here from, I brought it home to Janie because and we're beating the kids up, but really I'm beating the parents up. And you could say, oh, you don't have kids, you don't know. Excuses. This is what accountability looks like. I'm kind of poking people in the chest, adults, because I don't know any 11-year-olds that can get in the car and have a credit card and go to freaking Publix and buy their own food. I don't know any of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the parents. And it really bugged me. And I really, I want to tread carefully because I don't want to traumatize kids around food and physical activity. I wanted to incentivize it. But with the parents, it's like, I don't want to piss you off because I want you to do what needs to be done because this matters to everybody. Like if these kids grow up sick and they're sick at 25, they're not necessarily going to be super productive members of society during their most productive years. Right. They're going to be challenged. They're going to be dealing with disease. And then we're looking at, overwhelming and because the medical system, because these people are going to need more access to the medical system. Does that make sense? And they're going to be younger. So now you got 30-year-olds that are sick like they're 60, competing with 60-year-olds for access to medical care. And it's going to be a whole cluster of issues that is going to make healthcare more expensive. And it's not going to be good for society. Okay, so you can see where I'm going with this. But the conversation was, I have this group of kids. They're athletes. Mother brings one of the kids in. He's heavy. And I'm remembering when I was a kid, in the 90s, there was one heavy boy, one heavy girl per class. And now there's, childhood obesity rates are at like 20%. So 1 in 5, right? That's a lot. That's a lot. And I'm seeing it. Remember, I'm dealing with the athletes, the supposed athletes. And I see that, observationally speaking, I'm like, man, I'm getting a lot of heavy athletes. Yesterday, I was training a freaking whole team. And they were a good amount of heavy kids. A whole team.
Now, I do just, so with kids, it's a little bit different because anytime a kid goes through a growth spurt, they are gonna
You
put on a little bit of weight. It's almost, this isn't how it works, but how I kind of see it in my brain is like they have to like make excess skin and everything get a little bit bigger because then they're gonna get taller, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I always like to tread carefully with kids because maybe they're going through, like they put on a little bit more weight, they have a little bit more body fat, but it's not gonna look like that in a year. But what Dan, and we appreciate that, but what Dan is seeing is different than that.
Yes, exactly. So the whole baby fat thing, I get that.
Yeah.
This is not it.
Yeah.
And I promise you that you can look at a kid with the baby fat thing and look at one that's trending in obesity.
And some of his athletes are the ones who he's speaking of also do have blood work to support prediabetes.
Yes.
And so things at a metabolic mitochondrial level are messed up. They're not functioning properly. And this is the end result.
Yeah. The long way of telling you that, the parent comes in, tells me, they want to train for the sport and they want speed and agility. That's another conversation. But then they'll admit that I just want them to lose some weight. And I'm looking at the kid, very overweight, 11 years old. Parent tells me that the kid the doctor told him that he's pre-diabetic at 11 years old. Kid's heavy. He's playing a sport. And, I just want him to lose some weight. And I'm looking at the parent telling me this, Diet Coke in hand, telling me about their kid's pre-diabetes and the kid just doesn't want to eat the right stuff. Same kid, that was the mom. Dad comes in another time, brings him. Dad's overweight too. And he's telling me that he wants the kid to lose weight. I'm like, damn, Dad, you could lose some weight. But
so what we're trying to say
no,
is it's a family thing.
Yeah, I'm keeping it real. I'm keeping it 100 here. And, and listen, it's not judgment. I'm just telling you, this is accountability. And it might seem like an attack. That's what accountability is. But I'm only doing this because I freaking love, it's out of love. Like, I want to see people thrive. I don't care who you are, what your color is, race, creed, religion, sexual orientation. I want to see the collective of humans thriving.
Yeah, it's a difference between being nice or kind. Like, I can be nice to you and say, yeah, no, it's okay. You're fine. Eat poorly. Set the example for your kids to eat poorly.
You did great.
Fine. So I can be nice. But if I'm kind, I really care about you, okay? And so I'm being kind by telling you, hey, as a parent, you need to straighten out your food intake. You need to get healthier because kids model after you.
Exactly.
And also, you're the one buying the groceries. You're the one determining what food is available. So many times I work with adults, parents who want to lose weight, and I can't stop snacking on this stuff I have for my kids. Why are your kids eating that?
Exactly.
Right? You know it's not good for you, but you're going to turn around and say it's okay for your kids. But then that goes back to, we're kids. We can eat anything because we're burning it off. No, because the quality of the food is not what it was.
That brings a good point. People, when the parent wants to lose some weight and he or she changes what they're eating drastically, but they're letting the kids continue to eat the same crap that they're eating that the parents ate that made them gain the weight. That's wild. If you're going to change, everybody should change.
Yeah. Perfect example is I have a lot of friends who have kids, and I do notice that my friends who they eat more of a whole food, good quality diet, their kids are mimicking them. They want to eat what mommy eats. They want to eat what daddy eats, or that's the food that's available. And then I have a friend whose kids, they want steak for breakfast. Like, let's go.
This friend is a client of mine, a remote client of mine. And then there's all sorts of picture of these kids because she lifts weights in the basement like a boss with 5 kids, people. And the kids are like, they want to lift the weights too. They want to looking at their muscles. I mean, come on, man. Lead by example doesn't fail.
Right.
It applied in the military. It applies in any other thing. Lead by example.
We could sure use that in healthcare.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. But, staying with the kids, when the father comes in and he's telling me, man, I really want him to lose some weight, but dad's chomping on some freaking chips and they're going down his shirt and stuff. I'm just like, it made me angry for a second, but I'm like, yo, this man he's not making that connection that the kid is emulating the behavior that he's putting out. You know what I mean? He's not making it like at first I'm like, bruh, look at you, bruh. Like that's what I want to say. But then it's like, he hasn't made that connection.
Right.
And all of that to say that it's fine. It's fine. It's fine, guys.
Yeah.
It's fine. So we could probably wrap it up here. I think we've went in on this. I wanted to talk about school lunches and how that's definitely setting up kids for failure.
Right. So I think that that's something else that's on the parent, right? Take an active role in your kid's school. What are they feeding your kids when you're not feeding your kids? What is the school board deciding? You can influence that because you're the one who determines who's on the school board. So that's just something that, to further, take an active part in your kids' nutrition at home. And then also, where else are they getting food?
Yep. And listen, bottom line here, what we're going to close with is food quality is probably the number one thing that we should start paying attention to unravel this issue.
Yes.
I would say that paying attention to food quality, even before you get in the gym and start lifting weights, I almost rather see you invest time and energy into improving the quality of the food that you're consuming. And trust me, it's going to take you a while to unravel that knot.
Yeah.
For sure. Because there's a lot of stuff that people are thinking, and we fell into this. A lot of stuff like almond milk, with all the oils in it and stuff. Like you could fall into this rabbit hole where you think this is healthy and you keep eating it because you think this is healthy. And when you actually look into it and start turning that mug around and reading those ingredients, turns out that it's a scam. So if we keep the same level of sedentarism, and I'll put a lot of money on this bet, we're too sedentary, but if we kept the same level of sedentarism and improved our food quality, I bet you our health results would be significantly different without even getting people in the gym yet. Okay. So and I'm willing to wager a lot on that, but don't at me, bro. Come at me with your macros, whatever the hell. Oh, that's not the case. Run the experiment, bro. Run the experiment. I promise you I'm right.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything you want to close with, Jane?
Nope, that's great.
Okay, well, that's an episode, guys. Thank you for putting up with us. We went a little bit longer than usual, but we had to get this one out. It was in our hearts and it was bugging us. Okay. Thanks for listening to the Pharmaphobic podcast. If you found this conversation interesting, which I know you did, make sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also make sure to check us out on Instagram @Achieve the Lifestyle. And if you're interested in pursuing a stronger, healthier, more capable version of yourself, check out our website at achievethelifestyle.com.
The Pharmaphobic podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not constitute medical, legal, or professional advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider before making any medical or wellness decisions. While we discuss pharmaceutical, holistic, and alternative health topics, our content is not a substitute for professional medical guidance.